Greetings, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Beyond Boardroom Business. I'm your host, Coach Stephanie, and you are in for another amazing episode. If you know anyone who is interested in learning anything about cryptocurrency or anything in that arena, you definitely won't be disappointed. I would love for you to make sure that you have your friends and family chime in on this episode because you're definitely about to learn a lot with my next guest, which is right here, Mr. Bay Muhammad. How are you this evening, sir?
I am doing splendid. Greetings to you and your audience.
Thank you. So, without further ado, tell me, who is Mr. Bay Muhammad?
Well, I'm just like everyone else in some ways, of course, but I would say, fundamentally inserted with certain spiritual gifts and certain proximity, to being in business.
Oh, wow.
When I was a young child, my mother says, and somewhere around 4 or 5 years old, she asked the question that parents typically ask their children: "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I gave the answer: I wanted to be a businessman. Now I don't, specifically remember that, but I know for a fact that I've always wanted to be in business. It was always something I thought about, um, and had the benefit and blessing of being around some business owners, working for some self-employed people, business owners, small business owners, and seeing kind of what that life was like. So it was something I was aspiring to um, since my youth. Yes, indeed.
Wow.
Um, yes. So, I guess how my sojourn really starts, though. Um, I'm working, and so I did a stint in the military for a while. So I have
Okay.
a military background as well. Um, and coming home, um, didn't have enough. What people need to know, just for those who might go in the military, you've got to spend a vast number of years in your MOS, your job training skill, to generally get enough to come out into the real world for it to be very meaningful. So I spent three years or so in the military, came out, and I was in communications, didn't have enough to really go into anything major. So I was working a number of jobs and finding my way, and ventured into electrical work, and worked there for a while. But then, in my prayers, I was praying to go to become this entrepreneur someday. And I will say to all of those listening, you know, the Most High, he acts with each of us in his own unique way, because we're all individual personalities and spirits.
Right.
But typically, he likes to see faith, right? He likes to see us exhibit faith in what we're praying for. So in my particular case, as I'm praying that something can happen where I can become an entrepreneur, the company I'm working for, all of a sudden offers a buyout program.
Mhm.
Now, you know, this buyout wasn't huge, but it was a nice little sum of money. It wasn't huge at the time. We're talking um, middle 1990s kind of thing. And I was thinking about it, praying on it. And it came to me that this was, like the crack in the door,
Okay.
that now I have to have faith. I have to exhibit the faith necessary to take this plunge. And I would say to all entrepreneurs that that's key, because this is, I call this the walk on water. For those who certainly are familiar with the story of Jesus walking on water, that's what being in business is like. It's like walking on water, because you got to have belief, you got to have faith. It's
Yes.
going to be scary, but you've got to, if you believe in yourself and you believe in what you're doing, you got to take that faith. So I took it. I took the buyout. And at that time, I began a cleaning business. In fact, now that I'm thinking about it, I had owned this cleaning business part time while I was working. So I was
Wow.
doing the proverbial having the business and working the job. But then the buyout came, and I took the buyout, and I um, was able to make that particular business blossom a bit. Sold that business, went into retail, um, owned a retail store, selling communications, ironically, and took that from one store to two stores. Uh, and then I got into real estate. Now I'm owning the retail, and I start getting into real estate. So you people can get the gist here that I am a serialpreneur. I have moved around quite a bit in my ventures, in my endeavors, but it has made me a very full person. And so with
Mhm.
our current business, Tassetti Inc., which is a management consulting firm slash technology company, this is, I think, where I'm meant to be. This is kind of the
Mhm.
shebang here, so to speak. But kind of going forward, this story, real estate did very well in real estate. Started off with one property, um, and renovated that property, and and then brought another one, and renovated it, and was renting those properties. And at some point, had over 30 properties. Started a property management company, got a real
Mhm.
estate license, started dabbling with finance, the finance end of real estate, and developed a system where we were doing all of these things.
Wow.
Did very, very well in the early 2000s. And then lo and behold, oh my goodness, here comes the recession.
Wow.
Now, at this moment, we had done exceedingly well, and we were um, taking it level by level, and had moved up to the level of being true developers. So, for those who might understand that, when you become a developer, or a true developer, let's say, now we're talking about developing land,
Mhm.
and doing housing projects. So, we got involved in a housing project, which was a 20-unit townhouse development project, raw land. Took about 2 years to put this project together. And unfortunately, we lost about $800,000 in that project when the Great Recession hit.
Yeah.
Um, for those who lived through that, for those who, and many did, I've heard stories from many people who were involved in real estate. But it was one of the biggest collapses next to the Great Depression, right?
Yeah.
Um, Big banks failing, insurance companies failing, and in truth, had it not been for government bailouts for them, the big elite firms, they would have been wiped out.
Wow.
Smaller companies like ours were hit tremendously. Equity was blown out of our project. And it was one of the most, frankly, devastating moments that had occurred in my business career, and had to really go back to the drawing board, figure out what to do, praying about, like, what happened?
Wow.
God, tell me what happened. What went wrong here, right?
Yeah.
So we got involved with some other things in manufacturing at that point, kind of did a rebound. And we were actually blessed in the pandemic to do some things, because we were in manufacturing. So some good things actually came out of the pandemic, but learned a lot there as well. And then we started, when the pandemic ended, sales began to fall off a bit, and we were looking at ways to finance our company. Now, for those who are entrepreneurs, it's critical to know that every business needs capital. Whether you're a Wall Street firm, whether you are a mom and pop business, every business will need money at some point for various things: working capital, expanding your business, etc. So, as sales were declining after the fall off of the pandemic, we were looking for ways to monetize certain things. And what we know, in particular, as people of African descent, is that the financial uh, ability, there's been blockages, there's been redlining, there's been all sorts of things. We know it because some companies have been caught and penalized, in fact, for doing with predatory lending and all of these kinds
Yeah.
of things, right? So we were looking at, how could we do alternative financing? How could we find a way other than doing the traditional things and going to banks? And we were blessed to find blockchain. Now, blockchain is the foundational technology that I'm going to say right here now is the game changer for everything.
Mm.
And we are blessed to be a part of it. We've been doing it now for nearly 7 years. We've been in it. We dabbled first, but it saved another enterprise of ours. We were able to capture capital in debt to enable our business to grow and flourish. And we're at this moment now where, um, on the one hand, it's always a mixed bag when we talk about politics. So I'm going to say that I'm neither Democrat or Republican. If anything, I'm going to call myself an independent.
Right.
And I would have a libertarianist view, right? I do believe in less government intervention in this kind of thing, right?
Okay.
But in truth, I'm a communalist. We could talk about that and what that really means
Mhm.
later. That deals with our ancestral lineage. But so what's happening right now that many businesses are facing in America, small and large nonprofits, is that there's a funding takeaway, right? We're
Mhm.
seeing grant programs being ended. We're seeing um, the size of government contractors being reduced.
Yeah.
We're seeing the budget being cut. We're seeing capital and the use of it being taken away from traditional enterprises. What are
Correct.
people going to do? Well, we believe the answer is the technology. Now, here's what's significant, and why we love it, because I think for us and for me, the greatest times of my entrepreneurial world, and we've been an entrepreneur for I've been an entrepreneur for 30 years,
Okay.
right? 30 whole years. That's a long time. That means, and I mean, we haven't worked for anybody else. Like we do or die. We eat what we kill, as they say in sales, right? If we don't kill it, we're not eating. This
Yeah.
is the real life of a real entrepreneur. So um, we understand what it takes and what it means. This is why we our motto is to find ways to say yes when we're working with people and to help as many people as possible. When I was doing real estate, the greatest part of that was helping other people to make wealth and get wealthy while I was getting wealthy and making wealth. That's reciprocity, the sense of the flow and the interaction, right? If you think about wealth and money as currency, currency being like electricity, energy, spirit, it flows well in the essence of reciprocity. And
Yes.
so we always are looking to do things like that, right? We believe what we're doing now at Tassetti Inc. is that next real big opportunity for us, um, to not only for ourselves do well, but to help many, many, maybe thousands of people to do well.
Okay.
When it comes, go ahead.
I was just going to ask you. You mentioned that you went through a recession and you were losing money left and right, in so many words. How did you weather the storm? What did you do outside of prayer and strategic thinking? How did you get through that?
Well, one of the things I think, and what we try to be is a mentor too. We have, I'm positioned in this at this particular time to be a mentor to many others. I was in my maybe late 30s at that point.
Okay.
Didn't really have any mentors and
Okay.
had to figure a lot of this out on my own. Now, fortunately, we had positioned ourselves to have some capital in reserve pockets,
Nice.
but we really took quite a hit. Like I said, $800,000 is no joke.
Yeah.
Trust and believe me, it's no joke. But I think the two things that really helped us there was number one, we did have some reserve capital left.
Okay.
Number two, we researched, pulled ourselves together, researched, and found out what moves we could make to begin to salvage, what we could. So, in a devastating circumstance, right? Think of
Right.
anything devastating, a fire, God forbid,
Yeah.
some kind of weather catastrophe like a hurricane or something like that, right? What
Yeah.
do? Right?
Right.
You got to pull yourself together. You have to you've hopefully prepared yourself in some way for the ultimate possibility, right? And we should all do that because we never know what's going to happen. So we should be prepared for the worst case scenario, and then be ready to effectively research and do what's necessary to move forward. Because there's always the potentiality of tomorrow. If we have breath, we can do it again. And
That's true.
so that's what we were blessed to be able to do. And we're right here in the pocket of that sojourn right now.
Hmm. Now, you mentioned that you didn't have any mentorship. And so, how did you decide which businesses that you were interested in pursuing? You did the research, or just how did you do it without mentorship?
Well, I've always been an avid reader.
Okay.
For one thing, one of my business, two people that just popped in my head who are my kind of my, they would have been my mentors had I had the chance to have met them. One of them would be the great Reginald Lewis, the first billionaire, um, who I loved his book. Why should white guys have all the fun? Phenomenal book. Everyone should read that book because he really gives you a sense. He almost puts you there with him as he's
Mm,
going through the different levels of his development and his business sojourn. From he was an attorney, so he was already an established person. But
okay.
the significance of Reginald Lewis is that he developed the first food service, international food service, first African American person to
Wow.
earn to own an international food service business. That's tremendous, right? So
Yeah.
his feats, his accomplishments should be looked at. The second person is the great Dr. Amos Wilson, um, who many people may or may not know him, but he was one of the greatest minds, I think, of the 20th century. He was by trade a psychiatrist, but he was hugely vested. I say he was an economist. I don't know if he was actually, quote, uh, certified as an economist, but
Okay.
if you read his writings, he's one of the greatest minds economically speaking. So
Wow.
those two people and others I've read a lot about. They helped me to be able to do a lot of things that I've ultimately done. And then I think spirit just guided me. So when I started being in business, I'm talking to you today very freely, very comfortably. This was not me when we first opened that first retail store. I was quite an introvert, I would say. Wasn't necessarily comfortable talking to even strangers, but I had a choice. It was either I was going to learn to sell, I was going to learn to communicate and talk to people, or not eat.
Yeah, that's
And so I
it.
learned. And so there's a philosophy historically, and that people can read, that there have been events in history where groups of people have been stranded. Let's say, I can't think of the exact person, but they were a group of people in South America. These were Spaniards who had traveled into South America. And at some point, the captain, um, when they were being attacked, he decided we're going to win or die. So he burnt their ships.
Wow.
And so the choice was either win or die. Well, they
Mm,
won because they had no choice. So sometimes, when we're put in a situation where it's either do or die, you find whatever you need to invigorate yourself to win. So that has happened, and we've been blessed to do that. Yes,
wow. So you mentioned that you were an introvert. Are you still an introvert?
I'd say um, what's the term that they use for sort of in between? Um, I can't think of the term now, but I'm sort of in between now. I guess the in my heart and soul, I still like my quiet moments to
Yeah.
self and this kind of thing. But I'm very comfortable speaking to people at this level or this juncture, and I have a lot to share. We love to
Mm,
share our sojourn and our history of what we've done. Like I say, we're teaching people right now about this blockchain. Only 10%. Interesting fact. Less than 10% of the world population are involved with this. And yet,
wow.
and yet, we know by fact, we know because we see governments, big
Mm,
corporations, and even central banks beginning to adopt digital finance. We know the world is going digital. So paper money is becoming obsolete. Everyone will be interacting with something. The question to us is, will it be something we control and have power over, or
Mm.
will other forces have more power over us than they already do? And that's what's at hand.
So let me ask you this. For those who don't know anything about cryptocurrency or anything in that arena, can you explain to us in layman's terms what is cryptocurrency?
Yes, yes, yes. So number one, we are educators.
Okay.
So we do a lot of. We started our business educating people about this because we believe in it and we know the absolute necessity of people, the populace, the average everyday man and woman. I cannot stress this enough. The average everyday man and woman getting to understand this is of the greatest importance. It is
Yeah.
imperative for us. Now, uh, as I'm beginning to explain this, I want to dispel some false narratives that have been put out there. Um, Two things: this is more risky than anything else. That is
Mm.
absolutely a lie. That is absolutely not true. Everything in finance, stock markets, options, bonds, even. Can you believe it? Now, bonds are considered to be one of the safest thing in finance. We can get out 4 or 5% a year, and we're pretty much guaranteed we're going to get that. Not anymore. The
Okay.
bond market has been in trouble, in
Wow.
particular over the last 60 days. Bond market has been in trouble and even lost money in 2024 and recently. Not even that safe per se, right? No guarantees. So there's nothing. And for us as entrepreneurs, we know the risk, right? 80% failure rates in US overall, 80% first 5 years, 80% second years. Among African American business, 80% 18 months is the failure rate. We're talking huge risk here. So when it comes to crypto,
Okay.
we got to understand that all crypto is not the same. There's decentralized, there's centralized, right? What does that mean? It means that some things have mechanisms of control where some person, some entity, some government, some corporation can turn it off and turn it on. That's kind of
Mm.
centralized.
Okay.
Decentralized is where nobody really has control. So think of Bitcoin for it as an example. It's on the blockchain. Nobody really controls it. We interact with it person to person via our computers and etc. So there's no mainframe to this, right? No main server. If the U.S. government try to cut it off, they can't. How do we know? China actually tried to. China
Mm.
actually tried to stop its citizens from using Bitcoin
Wow.
about 5 years ago. Did not work. No success with that. They cannot cut this off. So those are two big things about crypto. The other thing is volatility, right? Oh, it moves around so much. I
Mm.
can lose my money. Here's a secret. This is very special. In real crypto, now note what I say. Note the adjective I'm using, real,
Mm-hmm.
because there are a lot of things that use crypto that are not blockchain based.
Oh.
That's very critical. Many
Okay.
people have gotten caught up in these things, been scammed by these things. Some of them are Ponzi kind of things. We
Okay.
don't do any of that. We stay away from that. We only deal with real blockchain. Blockchain has certain characteristics. It's immutable, meaning when something's done on the blockchain, it can't really be changed when certain other elements are interworking with that. Number two,
Okay.
blockchain is transparent. We can see it,
Right.
right? If I send you money and you say I didn't get it, I'm sorry, I didn't get it, Muhammad. I didn't get the money. I can say, okay, let's go on the blockchain and see. Like we can go
Mm.
look and find the transaction on the distributed ledger. That's what blockchain is, and we could see the physical transaction 30 years from now. We can see that
Wow.
transaction, right? That's the power of this. So um, people need not fear that, right? In fact, that's our friend.
Yeah.
Now, volatility. Here's something else important. I always tell people this is not get rich quick. Forget that. If that is your thinking or expectation, you're going to go wrong. You're going to hurt yourself. No, it
Yeah.
is not that. What it is, though, is earn wealth at a pace that has never been done before, maybe in human history. Why do we say that? We have 17 years of proof now. And in
Mm.
the last 11 years, decentralized finance as an asset class has outperformed everything else.
Mm.
Now, just think about that mathematically, how probable that is. That's not even probable mathematically to think that one thing could outperform Bitcoin using one. There are many others, but gold, silver, stocks, bonds, real estate, options, everything else. It has outperformed everything else for 11 years straight. That
Oh,
is unprecedented.
yeah.
So here's a little bit of what we call alpha in the crypto world or DeFi world. You never really lose unless you sell too early, right? So
Mm.
people panic, right? So recently Bitcoin, remember this, Bitcoin hit was 6 cents in 2009 when it kind of started. It has gone up to 110,000.
Mm.
Now let me just give people a quick measurement to that. 2017, Bitcoin was roughly $1,000 for a coin in the early part of 2017. It did 100x in 8 years, 2025, over 100x, 110,000. That's the level of growth or appreciation. It would take 15 to 20 years to do that, generally speaking, in stocks.
Wow.
8 years Bitcoin, 15 years. Now, 8 years is not a short amount of time, but it's not long. Again, quicker pace, right?
Right.
But there are moments, and we know it, when people have gotten exceedingly wealthy. So it can happen, but let that not be our expectation. What
Okay.
does that? The volatility. So the
Mm.
volatility is actually helping to produce the kind of rate of return that we see in this. What's critical here? Risk management, know how, knowing what you're doing. So, we teach this and we manage this for people,
Okay.
and people are doing excessively well. We
Wow.
invite people to talk to our clients. They will tell you what's happening from their mouths.
Wow. So, is there a way to tell, or do we need to seek an expert like yourself if it's worthy to invest in it or not? Is there some kind of telltale
Well,
sign?
let's start with this because this is important. If anyone's going to create wealth, number one, if we have a job, we got to do more than that, right? Because we must understand let's say the matrix of America. America is built for wealth growth by a particular class of people, let's
Okay.
say, and it is not wage earners,
Mm.
right? So if we are wage earners, and there's nothing, I worked a job, people work jobs and do businesses, all of that's fine. People may work a very good job, right? And make very good money. That's great. But by and large, the structure, tax system, and everything else is not made for wage earners. It's made for business people,
You're right.
right? That's why business people in this country do exceedingly well. Tax law is made for business people. So, um, and then what do these people do? If you looked at anybody wealthy, right? Number one, they're probably in business, right? Or whether they inherited it or whether they started it, they probably have some business. Number two, they're investors of something. So if we don't invest, we're unlikely to gain real wealth. So if we want wealth, we must invest in something. Maybe you don't invest in decentralized finance, but you got to invest in real estate or stocks or bonds or something, because this is how wealth is created. And
Yes,
we can prove that with 150 years of data. That's
you're
an absolute fact. So if we're looking to place ourselves and even secure ourselves, because most people might not know this, if you only hold cash, dollars,
right.
you're
Hmm.
losing money at a rate of 7 to 8% a year. And
Definitely.
that's before inflation. So anybody who has money in a bank account, for example, or a savings account, God forbid, shame on you. Shame on you. Shame on you. Like remember the teachers used to slap our hands with rulers. Like shame on you. Like you should be ashamed of yourself because you're losing money at
Yeah.
listen. The average bank account savings account today might pay us 5%.
Right.
Okay. Again, I say we're losing 7 to 8% per year. Now, that's hard for us, for people to mentally wrap their heads around because of how we're programmed and how we
Yeah.
see
You're
paper
right.
money, right? So I have for example, $1,000 in my savings account. I see it. It's there. It's
Mm.
$1,000. So I'm
So,
saying, how am I losing money? I see the $1,000. You realize it though when you take some money and go to the store. How many of us have recently, in the last year or two, realized when we go get groceries, wow, I just spent $150. I got a one bag of groceries. I used to get three.
mm-hmm.
That's how you know that
Mm.
$1,000 really isn't $1,000 anymore. So we
So,
don't see it like, something on a chart that's moving and we can see it going up and down, and that gives people certain emotion because when you brought it 90,000 it dips to 74,000 talking about Bitcoin, you might feel fearful because you see it in real time that it went down, so it looks and feels like I'm losing. But buy and hold, don't sell.
hold
Because
on.
look what in real life what happened. It literally did these things. It was at 110 at the weak point this year. I think it went down to 74. It's back at 93 today, right?
Mm.
So if you didn't sell early, you
Yeah.
didn't lose anything,
You're
right?
right.
So very important there. But when we talk about paper money, friends and family, you're losing money if you're not investing. If we add on inflation is at least 2% plus a year. So we're talking -9%. If your money is sitting in a bank, you're gaining 5%, but you're losing 9%. So you're net -4%, right?
Right.
Got to invest.
Right. Wow. That is really powerful. I like the way you broke that down, and I hope others can understand what you're saying because you definitely know what you're talking about. Do you have, in closing, do you have anything that you would like to share with the viewers and listeners?
Yes, yes. So the first is what we just talked about. Please, 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 by whatever means people do it, study investing of some sort of kind. You cannot really move forward in America or anywhere in the world really without getting involved in some investment. Even if you're not doing it for self, but for your children and their children, do
Yes.
that. Right. That's number one. Number two, what we're seeing with decentralized finance has never been seen before. Never been technology like this. And if we don't think that this is major,
Mm,
who are the two biggest owners of Bitcoin in the world? Ding, ding, ding. United States, China, two biggest economies. Do we think
mm,
that's just
mm.
a mishap? No.
Right.
um, and we're still at the beginning.
Yeah. You're
17 years is nothing. This is the biggest technology, and Wall Street, who basically said this was nothing, it's no good, you should stay away, has 180 degrees turned around. And just recently, just last year, January 12th, to be exact, 2024, came in big after having to sue to get in. They sued the SEC,
wow.
the two biggest the biggest investment company in the world, BlackRock, took the lead in the lawsuit, I believe,
Mm,
and others sue the SEC because they see the bigness of this. And they came in with starting 30, $40 billion. Do we think they don't know what this is?
right.
So for you and I and everybody else who is a regular person who doesn't have billions of dollars, but you dream one day of the possibilities, there's never been a vehicle like this. You must
Mm.
take a look at this. Yes.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much. Now, how can our viewers and listeners find you?
Yes. Two means I want to give out, maybe three. So number one, the website, www.tassetti, it's pronounced, but I'll spell it TASETI www.taseinc.com. Let me do that again, www.taseinc. Let me do that. TASETIINC.com. That's the website, or customer service, two words together, customer service at, again, the address, TASETIINC.com. Simply reach out to us. People can get a presentation or just talk to us about different things. And you'll see the reviews on our site and everything. So feel free.
Wow. I've learned so much from you in this short amount of time. So I would love for you to come back so I can ask you some more questions and just learn a little more about this crypto world. Is that fine with you?
Absolutely, absolutely. We,
Okay.
you know, to when we retire, maybe our retirement will be in educating. By the way, so we'll
Oh,
never really retire, but
oh,
we will be doing mentoring for people when we kind of set down the other things. Um, but please reach out to us. We would love to help anybody in any way we can. We want to make as many people wealthy this year, next year, in maybe 3 years, because that's the cycle. Look at what economists are saying. They're saying get it now. These next 3 years are very consequential for anyone
yeah.
looking to grow in wealth.
Yes. Wow. Thank you. And I want to thank my viewers and listeners. Thank you all for being a part of this podcast, this particular episode with Mr. Bay Muhammad. And I would love to hear your feedback on anything you would like to share about this episode, or anything you would like for me to ask him for the next time he comes through. I want to thank you all again for tuning in to Beyond Boardroom Business with your host, Coach Stephanie. And until next time, stay powerful, stay prayerful, and stay persistent. Look forward to seeing you all next time. Thank you. Peace.
Peace.